Hello and welcome to Illuminating Truth. I'm Timothy Quinn and I'm going to be your host. So let's get started. We've got some interesting stuff to talk about. The first video that I posted for this channel talks about you are not the person that you see in the mirror. You are an immortal droplet of divinity, literally a child of the divine, of source, of God, whatever you want to name that. You are you are unlimited in your creativity to the same degree that Source is. You have all of those same capabilities. You are immortal. You can't be born. You cannot die. You can pretend to be born. You can go through that experience, but you, the real you, um, is a spirit. It's you're a light being basically. You have full consciousness as a light being. You have better senses, all your senses, as a light being than you do inside an incarnation. Um, you are given unconditional free will to create and experience the consequences of your creation. Um, and you are made of, and this is an interesting point, and this is what we're going to talk about in this second recording. And we're going to, like I said in the first one, we're going to try to keep these kind of short so that we don't have to cover a ton of material that can get confusing and weird all at once. So we're going to take small steps and just keep going. So let's talk about what reality is. If you are the spirit that comes into an incarnation and you do it by basically wearing or interfacing with a body, you are the consciousness inside that body. The body is a limiting device. It's designed to provide limitations that you cannot have in your natural form because you're not limited. So most physicists today, or a lot of physicists um, today, especially quantum physicists, and even Einstein, towards the end of his life, um, came to the conclusion that at the very bottom of everything that we call um, matter, stuff that everything is made of in the universe, it's made of atoms. And atoms are made of matter. They're made of um, what we used to call, still call electrons, protons, and neutrons. And many of us were taught that these were, quote, particles that were doing things, and collectively, whatever they were doing in their orbits around, like you would have electrons orbiting around a nucleus that contained a number of protons and neutrons. And that was the atom. The number of electrons and the number of protons and neutrons, if you just change that by a little bit, you create a new element. So you can you can start with a small number of electrons, protons, and neutrons, and that creates a specific element. You can change just add one more electron and one more proton and one more neutron, and you've got a different element. Elements are things like they're the stuff that the universe is made of. So they're all the different kinds of substances that we get to play with inside realities. So there's an atom that we call hydrogen, and an atom that we call helium, and an atom that we call oxygen, and an atom, all these different kinds of atoms. And they only differ by the number of electrons and protons and neutrons and whatnot inside them. When I first learned that, and my teachers called them particles, my very first question was, well, if atoms are what create the stuff that we encounter inside realities, what are the electrons, protons, and neutrons? What are you called them particles? What are the particles made of? And you're thinking they must be made of something because they're called particles. Well, this is a very, very easy thing to answer. You can Google this, you can search this, any search engine you want. It doesn't have to be Google, but you can search this and you can ask this question: what is an electron made of? It'll come back and tell you it's not made of anything. It's an electrically charged event. That's interesting. We'll talk about that in a second. And so, okay, fine. Then what's a proton made of? And it'll come back and tell you a proton is made of three quarks. So you say, oh, okay. So what's a quark made of? Same answer as the electron. A quark is not made of anything. It is an event that behaves in a certain way energetically. And where does it come from? Quarks come from a quark field. That's interesting. Where did an electron come from? Electrons come from an electron field. Neutrons are also made of three quarks, but they behave differently. The information set for the quark for neutron quarks basically are different. Then they behave differently. They spin different. They do different things than the proton. The proton comes out with a positive charge, which balances the electron charges basically, and the neutrons have a neutral charge. Okay. At no place in this discussion is anything material made of something other than an energetic event. So what happens in a field is the field is like a big, I don't know, like it's like an energetic ocean, if you will, of a certain kind of thing, like electrons. And so what happens is the field itself excites at a specific point, and that excitation and the behavior of that excitation of the field itself, of that whatever that force is, in this case it's a negatively charged force that does whatever it does. If it's moving like in an orbit, the field will excite at point one, the first point, and then it'll stop that excitation and it'll excite at a different point, and it'll stop that and a third point, and it seems like it's moving. It's not really moving. The field is just exciting at different places over time. Same thing with quarks. Um, and what that really means, and you can, like I said, look this up. Just ask your search engine. It'll take you down through exactly what I'm saying. So the entire atom experience, all of that stuff is energetic events that kind of seem particle-like conceptually. Thousands of years ago, when they were first thinking about this stuff, they actually thought they were particles of something. They're like little tiny balls of something, doing things. Um, but they're not. They're energetic in their nature. So atoms are purely energetic, which means there's nothing material about them. They're almost completely empty space with a little bit of energetic stuff going on, and it's governed by information sets. Well, the interesting part of this, and the part that Einstein became aware of, and many quantum physicists have become aware of, is that consciousness must be the thing that is doing this. In our case, divine consciousness. And I'll explain why in just a second. So consciousness creates the fields. Consciousness creates the information sets within which the forces inside the fields use to behave the way they do. So this is why many quantum physicists believe that there is consciousness at every level of creation. Matter itself becomes conscious, which means divinity, the being that we call source or God, can take its consciousness and create matter. And you might wonder why it would do that. What we believe at this point is that source has an agenda to know itself in all conceivable ways. If there's a way, if there's a created experience or set of scenarios that exists, source wants to know who it is in all perspectives within that created experience. So it wants to know from every viewpoint, from let's say it's some sort of conflict. So maybe you have an attacking force and a defending force, for example. Um, it wants to know what it's like to be the attacker, to be the weapons, to be the emotions, to be the thought processes, to be every detail of that experience from every vector of perspective. And it also wants to be the same thing for the defending force. And it is also the same thing for all the parts and pieces of the reality that it's creating to do that. So it wants to know itself. What better way to know itself than to be the matter that everything is created with? So when Source constructs the fields that create the potential for a reality construct to happen, and then Source supplies the perceptual capability to decode that data, that information, into what we experience as reality. That's what it does. And we, as droplets or children of Source, we do the same thing. We want to know who we are in every conceivable way. And so we too, within the construct of our creative ability, we create realities as well. And we get a lot of practice with that because we can do that in our dreams when we sleep, and we can wake up inside our dreams. Um, you can learn to do that. I've done it. Lots and lots of people have done it. And when you do that, you are then completely conscious in a reality that you can play with like a toy. You can change the rules of physics. You can do whatever. You can fly. You can swim in there and breathe underwater. You can go into space. You can do anything you want. You can merge with a tree. You can become a tree. You can change your form into anything you want. And you can have experiences that seem as real and feel as real as waking reality does. So this is what many physicists now think is going on, and it's what a lot of masters who have been through meditational processes have learned these same sorts of information and have talked about this stuff for thousands of years. So it is it is it's a well thought through set of constructs, and it's how it's for example in quantum physics, the stuff that manifests into reality knows that it's being observed. Even if it's being observed by cameras, it still knows, and it behaves differently when it's observed. So it is not only conscious of the observer, it is also conscious of the observer's belief systems, because you can have two different observers with two different belief systems do the same experiment under the same conditions and get different manifested results. Um, it's because it's a very interactive structure. And it makes sense because we are creative beings. In the first video, I said that we have unconditional free will to create and experience the consequences of our creativity. And this is what we do. Therefore, when people are done with the incarnation and they leave the incarnation, or maybe they have a near-death experience where they die briefly and go through that process and go up back to the astral, and they may do a life review to see what they have created in their recent experience, but they do it, that is given to them through the vectors of the others that they were experiencing these things with. So not just experiencing you get to experience you through other people's experience of you. Those that you did great things for, those of you that are, that you did not so great things for. You get to experience all of that. But it's not because something's right or wrong. It's so that you get all the vectors of meaning relating to that, to whatever you created there. So that's the idea. That's what's going on. And because of that set of truths, a lot of stuff becomes possible. And these are the kinds of things that are going to underlay everything that we talk about as we move forward. If you want to read a book, I just published a book with a lot of these principles. It's called The Primal and the Divine. And you can buy it on Amazon. Uh, Just just type that in by Timothy Quinn and you'll see it. And it's a story form that takes people through not knowing any of this, basically, into the actual journey of discovery associated with exactly what I'm talking about, these kinds of truths. And there'll be there'll be three books in this first series. I just published the first one, which is the primal and the divine, just a few months ago. So you can take a look at that. I think that might help as well, at least to begin to understand where we're going with all of this. Okay, so we're going to leave this right here, and we'll pick this back up in the next video. So thanks for showing up. You can click like and subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you next time. Okay.